involve us taking a look at some samples. Now, ideally, I'd have you handling these samples and actually playing with them a little bit, but we're going to do our best by having you do it virtually. So we're going to be looking at what's known as hand samples today. A hand sample is basically just a small piece of rock that you can hold in your hand, hence the name hand sample. So I want you to take a look at this picture of the Grand Canyon over here. You can see it has lots of different colors on it. It's beautiful. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but I've always wanted to go. But if those of you that have been, you can probably remember seeing these colored lines of color. If not, take a look at this picture. You can see all these different lines over here. Each of those colors represents layers you see in the Grand Canyon. Each layer is a rock formation. So that means it's all the same kind of rock together. Each of these hand samples is a portion of what you see over here. So it's a sample of these rock formations. We're going to be making some observations of these four pieces of rock, four hand samples of rock. We'll be studying them to help us gather some evidence. In order to get good evidence, we need to make sure we have detailed observations. So I want you to take a look at these two observations over here and tell me which one you think is better. Which one you think would make it easier for you to identify the object if I was talking about it. It is solid and transparent, or it is transparent, has a circular shape, has line markings on the side with other numbers, and is made of hard, solid material. We can obviously see the second one is a lot more detailed and gives us a lot more information so we can identify things. That's what we're looking for when we go to make our own observations after we watch this video. So we want to basically make sure that others could identify the rocks we're talking about based off of our observations. Some questions to consider are, how can we tell the rock samples apart? What is similar about the rock samples to other samples? Now, the next portion of this video will be kind of slower and go through a detailed representation of each of these hand samples. After the video is over, I want you to make sure you're going into the document that looks just like this and making some observations of each of the samples. So sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, and then sample 4. Once you have done that, and you've also turned in your notes, or you finished your notes from earlier, make sure you hit the turn in button on both of these assignments. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. See ya. Here's sample number 1. Make sure you're taking a look at it, looking at it very close. Remember, there's some questions to consider when we're looking at these. Do you think someone else could identify each of the rocks based on your written observations alone? So take a look at the shape, take a look at the colors you see, make sure you see if it's shiny or not. All these are things that you can add to your observations. Here's sample number 2. Sample number 2, make sure again, you want to make sure that you can tell how the samples are similar and maybe how they're different as well. What are some things you notice about this? Maybe use some descriptive language. So what does it look like? What shape is it? What are some of the smaller shapes? This is example number 3. Maybe say something about how they're similar to each other and how they're different from each other. What is the grain size of them? What color? And here's our last sample, sample number 4. Again, just make sure you're taking a look at those and trying to give us a detailed description of each of them. The more detailed, the better.